Nearly $12.8 trillion. That's where our national debt is headed. It's a big, impersonal, that means nothing to me. It's a big number out there in the ether. So let's break it down to something we can all understand. That big number impacts how society functions and how families function. We're going to talk to the Navolios in a minute, but first, here's their story.
I came to this for some personal reasons and some more idealistic reasons. My parents did everything by the book. They tried to be in a position where when they retired that they wouldn't be any type of a financial burden on their children.
Well, if you told me a year ago that 40% of our net worth, our retirement wouldn't be around, I wouldn't have believed that that was going to happen that fast, for sure. We thought that was locked and loaded.
In the past year, Drew's parents, Margaret and Stephen, downsized twice, from a large home in the suburbs to a large apartment, and then to a smaller apartment in the city.
Well, I'm glad I'm not a young parent right now. See, when I was a young parent, everything was up, all right? Your career, the possibility for making money, six-figure salaries were the minimum, That's not the case today. They'll be lucky to make $80,000, and, their whole lifestyle is going to be very different. It's the reality of life. My parents grew up with the Depression. They didn't expect anything, and they were always grateful for what they got. We were trained to expect. We're the first generation where everybody went to college. We expected the world, and it turned out we got large chunks of it. But now I think it's probably receding back to a more realistic world, but they're going to have to deal with that, and I understand it, and I think they understand it too.
As a parent, you always want more for your children. You want them to have things that you didn't have, that you didn't think were possible. You want them to have just as easy time, if not easier, achieving and staying in the middle class. How do you feel about that, Steve?
Well, I think, and the middle class is going to be redefined. What we thought the middle class was going to be, it grew and it grew, and everybody had money, and we chased after it. I don't know that the middle class is going to be as large nor as well off, but I think what we've done, or hopefully what we've done, is given them enough tools to survive and to cope with the world as it comes to them. You can't change that. You have to deal with the day-to-day and plan for the future, and hopefully, they have the tools and the experience to accomplish what they need to accomplish in their lifetimes.
Drew, you're of the millennial generation and part of a group raising awareness about our national debt. We're going to talk to you more about that later. But, how do you feel about having to work harder to be part of the middle class? Do you think that your generation is going to have to work harder to be part of the middle class, harder than your parents and maybe even your grandparents?
Yeah, and I think kind of to echo what my dad said in terms of what the middle class is, I think we're going to redefine that. And, our generation is going to be real interesting in terms of what we set as standards as success and what we find joy in, and that, I think that's going to redefine what makes up a middle class. And I don't think, I agree with the statistics and the research that show we may not be as well off as our parents were, but we are going to have to work harder, and I think we're equipped without a doubt. I mean, we are going to be the most educated generation in this country's history, and I think that's going to help us, but at the same time, even that education has a cost, and that's going to kind of prevent us from, being what we're accustomed to having, which is, the big home and 2 cars, and that American dream is going to be modified a little bit with our generation, I think.
Stephen, you've downsized twice now, and you make a really interesting point in the film that this is the first generation with so many people graduating from college. How is it that with all of this education has come all of this debt and all of this concern about how we're going to pay for it?
Well, the debt is huge, and how you're going to pay for it. I mean, when kids graduate college and they have anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 of instant debt at the age of 22, I owed nothing. My first credit card I didn't get till I was like 30, because they weren't available. Now they have credit cards, they have the debt, their whole life is built around debt. You can't expect them then to go out and achieve, the American dream, own a home and do this and do that. And you know, when you start off with $25,000 in the hole, you know, when we bought our first condominium, we didn't owe $25,000. So, you know, it's going to be a real different world, and I think it's going back the right direction, quite frankly.
Right.
Stay away from being too far in debt, and don't spend everything today because, well, we'll make more tomorrow. That may not be the case.
Margaret and Kristen, I want to ask both of you sort of this idea of downsizing and trying to cut your own budget and living within these new means. Margaret, you first. I mean, how has that been for you after being part of a generation that has seen such great prosperity for this country?
Well, at first it was exciting because we could get rid of a lot of things we didn't need, and it was sort of a new adventure. But it's a combination of exciting and I'm a little wistful because there are things I can't do that I used to be able to do. You know, I don't get manicures and my hair done the way I did. No, those are extras, but I think it's mostly the extras that we've kind of taken out of our life. We're very lucky in that we were sensible. We didn't use our home as a piggy bank. We've saved money. We saved for retirement and things like that. So the downsizing for us is a practicality of losing a lot of our net worth. Yes, certainly, because it changed how you can live. But it also always was a goal of ours to reduce our lifestyle a little as we got older so that we wouldn't be a burden to our children and that we would be able to enjoy life with fewer pressures than what we had. There's a lot of pressure to maintaining a certain kind of a lifestyle, and I think to Drew's point that this might not necessarily be a terrible thing for America to sort of get more sensible about our money and to enjoy other things in life. That's kind of what we've been doing.
Well, Kristen, that's a very optimistic way to look at it, that it's time to get back to basics and the like. But do you live and operate under the assumption that it's going to be a little bit harder for the younger generations because they're paying off some of that prosperity still from the generation before?
Yes and no. I think I did more before everything that happened last fall. I think I was more focused on how I was going to attain what I needed to be able to have the house in the suburbs and the 2-car garage and the 2.5 kids and pay for the college. And now I think I've reevaluated what I need and what I want, and I think I've done a good job, as has Drew, of figuring out how to take what we have and make that be what we want, and then reevaluate, okay, how can we make that better? What are the steps to take to do that?
The Navolio family in Chicago, thank you so much. And Drew, we'll talk to you again when we talk more about your generation and some of the hopes and solutions from that perspective. Cutting the budget, it's an important step in getting out of debt, whether you're an American family like the Navolios or the United States government. How to make tough choices and which choices to make next.